As a nurse, I've seen a lot of people with sleep deprivation. It affects their job, their home life. At Room to Room, we want to take the guesswork out of buying a mattress, and that's why we brought in this technology. It shows you what you need. We want to do the assessment and find exactly what's perfect for you.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 5.
Well, at 6, but you get the point. It's Mississippi Live Weather at 6. I'm meteorologist Gabe Maynor, and we are enjoying what has been a beautiful day. We are going to be joined by our chief meteorologist, Matt Lobhon, at his home studio where he's gotten to kind of experience that forecast. And Matt, I had a question at 5 o'clock that I wanted to ask. Sweatshirt or pullover, should I say? Or is that type of weather today?
No, it is in the air conditioning of the room I'm in with the doors closed to keep the sound of the children out. That's the kind of, yeah, that's the weather that we have. Otherwise, you're going to need sleeves a lot shorter than this going forward. We're going to be practically to the triple-digit point. We think an extended forecast there. So you're right. Probably should roll those up. Of course, thank you for joining us here into the Room Weather Center as we are looking at a forecast that for a lot of us is going to include a ton of heat. High pressure not just sticking around, but really sinking its teeth, so to speak, in and helping to build those temperatures. While we have very limited rain chances there, they're not zero. They're not good. You better be planning on using that sprinkler if you want meaningful moisture because the heat is definitely on and temperatures will continue to climb into the weekend. In fact, I think the real heat is as we look toward next week, but I think we'll obviously have some impacts there related to our high school football forecast. And speaking of that, we do have a high school football and SEC football previews from our Will Kohlmeyer. That's coming up a little bit later on this broadcast. I talked to him about, in particular, one of the big juggernauts around the area, the West Point, of course, Green Wave there, taking on Noxubee County this week. Of course, two great teams. He has a preview of that. And of course, all of our SEC football information as well coming up. So looking at the hour-by-hour forecast for us this evening, we're 85 degrees still at 7 p.m. So it's not extreme on the warmth. You probably needed some longer sleeves for about that long in the morning, depending on how long it took for the sun to get out where you're at there and get out of maybe the shade from some of the trees. We're 74 by 10 p.m. tonight, though, and under clear skies down there, 70 at 1 o'clock in the morning, about 66 as you look toward 4 a.m. and mid-60s by the first part of tomorrow morning. Gabe, in a couple of minutes, we'll look in more detail, obviously, at that forecast for the weekend, the heat associated with that, and that SEC football forecast. But I know that you're tracking, of course, a couple of sprinkles out there this evening on what has been a very pleasant day.
Well, you mentioned that you kind of blink and then that forecast shifts. Well, that's what we're getting whenever we head into those afternoon showers because, yes, we had it for a brief moment, but all of those started to dissipate away as we get more into that 5 and 6 o'clock hour. So across the region, Caledonia, 88 degrees, blue skies being seen there in Lowndes County. So a beautiful shot there, no showers in sight. And although that is a bad thing because we are still in that drought, it is a good thing for any of those evening plants. And I know church plants happening now, if not very short from now. Cleveland, 90 degrees as of 6 p.m. Feels like 93, so that dew point slightly higher out there towards Cleveland and northwest side of our viewing area, but that's a result of some of that moisture. I mean, as you can see, some clouds actually popping up, whereas Lowndes County was completely clear. So 90 degrees, definitely the story. Temperature is much warmer, 90 degrees down in Greenville too. Feels like 91. Those winds, we also talk about that, how that has changed. The wind's starting to shift more out of the southeast, whereas beforehand it was the northeast easterly winds. So those are starting to shift as well, and that's what's cycling in some of that warmer air. But Matt was talking about it. Those few sprinkles we had out there in the Mississippi Delta, Shelby, Cleveland, Greenville, Hollandale, dealt with that moisture earlier today. If anything, it just added to some of that mugginess and made it those temperatures bumped up a few degrees, but not really anything in regards to impactful rainfall at most up to a half of an inch in some of those brief heavy downpours, but that's a bit of a stretch and very isolated in regards to those locations. Seeing it as we zoom in that area there in the Mississippi Delta, talking there Hollandale, Greenville, Cleveland, you can see how these showers just cycle on through. Tried to reach there east, there towards 278, but I mean, we weren't getting much of anything. So that's the story heading into this evening. That'll be the story heading into tomorrow evening as well. Some of those rainfall totals, like I mentioned, just populating in a few of these. These are one of the, it is not 1.5 inches, I will tell you that. If anything, it was about half of an inch. And again, that was along Highway 61 there out in the Mississippi Delta. And while it was fortunate that we did get some of that rainfall, it's not a lot. And that's the thing with our extended forecast. We have limited chances of rainfall that could be moving into North Mississippi that will, of course, help, but it's not going to help as much as it needs to. Right now, that level 2 drought still in effect for a large portion of North Mississippi along Highway 6 and basically along Highway 61. For the rest of us, that level 1 drought, and there is that threshold right there that is not in the drought just yet. And the reason why I say just yet is because tomorrow, updated drought monitor comes out, and you might remember we've had 1/2 days of significant rainfall over the last week. And that means that the drought monitor has gotten worse. We need that rainfall over a progression of time, several days, and we haven't gotten that. We got it over that short period of time, and it's been dry ever since. So we expect that all those areas that are not under drought to be under drought tomorrow, and some of that level 3 there in eastern Arkansas, slowly but surely reaching more into North Mississippi. So while we are waiting in anticipation, we're not waiting in anticipation in a good way. Expanding this out, we can see that this has really affected a lot of locations up north of us, especially northeast Arkansas, and even as far north as Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois. So all of those locations expected to get worse as well. And a big reason why is because we're basically under this dome of high pressure that has dominated our area, as Matt said, sunk its teeth into our area. That is a great way to put it, because that has reigned supreme. Although that H isn't showing up, that high pressure is still out there in the Carolinas, cycling in some of that drier air. And while we do have that frontal boundary that's almost teasing us in a way of bringing in some of that moisture, we expect it to stall out, as you can already see that stationary front developing, and that, of course, steering clear of North Mississippi once again. That little disturbance you see out there towards southeast Kansas, northeast Oklahoma, that could be moving into our area with a few pop-up showers tomorrow evening. But that's the best bet of rain chances, and a large part of us aren't even going to see those little drops of rainfall that will be in case for our Thursday evening. Looking right here, you can see that front, again, tries to reach a little bit more south, but we are staying way away from that front, meaning rain chances little to none for our Thursday. The only chance we have is this disturbance as it progresses more through Arkansas and then into the eastern side of Arkansas there towards northwest Mississippi. That's going to be for your Thursday afternoon. And we are fingers crossed on that forecast, because I know a lot of yards are a little extra crunchy here recently, as someone put it. And again, I just love that terminology, because it's exactly right. You take a step outside, everything is dying, and so it just crunches beneath your feet. 6 a.m., 65 degrees, so that milder start to the day compared to what we had earlier on this week. I would say that we are out of the long sleeve forecast for the start of the days. We're back into that typical summer pattern, 73 by 9, 88 by noon, and we're 94 degrees by 3 p.m. And there you see that minimal chance, but hey, there is a chance at a few drops of rainfall there as we wrap up our Thursday. We are excited about that, but I know there will be a lot of folks more disappointed than excited about that forecast. As you can see, coverage around 10% from 6 p.m. all the way up until 10 p.m. So that's one of the things we'll be tracking here in the next 60, is that little chance of rainfall in that extended forecast, just who it'll affect, where it will go, and how long it'll be in the forecast for. And is this all we can expect heading into those football forecasts? Well, that's another thing we'll be tracking, is those football forecasts, and if those dry conditions prevail, and if those hot temperatures stick around. Chief Meteorologist Matt Laupon joining us with more on those forecasts, and also more from Cole Myers Corner. He'll be walking us through that in more detail in just a minute.
At Bulldog Burger, we take the burger game to the next level, like the Freshman 15, stacked with panko fried mozzarella. Unleash your appetite.
Growing up, Gabe was naturally curious. When he began to discover weather, Gabe just didn't want to know what was happening, but he wanted to know why it was happening. Gabe became fascinated with tornadoes, and it impacted his life. He wanted to pursue a career in meteorology. Even though Gabe grew up in Alabama, Mississippi has now become his home and his family. And one thing about Gabe is he keeps his family safe.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. But only you can prevent wildfires.
right now. From the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
Beautiful weather out there again this evening. Take some time to enjoy the fact that at 6:09 it is 84 degrees, because by football time later this week, it'll be 90s. Heading into next week, it'll be hotter, as we could be on one of the hotter stretches we've had this summer. Now, the thing is, I don't think as far as the heat index is concerned, we'll really quite notch something as high. We're looking, of course, more detail at that here in a couple minutes. Sherman coming in 84 degrees, as you can see right now. Our winds out of more of kind of a southeasterly sort of direction, speed on that only in the neighborhood of around 6 miles per hour or so at this time. Again, under what should be primarily mostly clear skies and that sunshine. It is out in a big way. I mean, if you look very closely there, perhaps just the littlest of a cloud showing up. Not much there. Appreciate all y'all down there in Monroe County for helping us here on Mississippi Live Weather. And if you know friends and family that would subscribe, of course, just recommend that they do that. This is kind of the off time of year. We just want to make sure everybody's set up as we work our way gradually in the fall. We eventually turn the rainfall on, and that means rain chances and storm chances eventually start coming back in. But of course, enjoying this beautiful weather while we can. Winona, it is 90 right now, feels like 90 degrees as well. Again, that measure of moisture, that dew point I'm pointing out there at 63, that's a low number. That's one of the things that, again, is helping us to stay clear and dry. There's one exception where we have one shower, and man, right before the newscast, you can see a little bit of it there. This in Rolling Fork, as we look back toward the south and west, one little shower that was still kind of out there. This is what we typically call convective debris. It's just kind of the leftover stuff from the showers. As you can kind of see, there's even some holes in that showing up as drier air winning out. 89 degrees in Rolling Fork at this instant. Typically one of our hotter locations. Looking here on the loop, I'm going to kind of put this into motion here for you on Mississippi Live Weather Radar. If you look closely, 1 hour loop here for a moment, right there. That's all that's left. So unfortunately, any meaningful rainfall long gone now at this point here, as we are dry with kind of that leftover stuff. And that's what all we're detecting here, bugs, things like that, but only clear air returns in the northeast part of Mississippi on Mississippi Live Weather Radar this evening. Checking out those temperatures, it is 88 right now in Water Valley, 89 degrees in Grenada, mostly in the mid-80s with the exception of Iuka, 80 degrees, 83 in Red Bay, and 83 for Hamilton, Alabama. And so in general, these temperatures running pretty close to our normal for this time of year today. I think we're back up probably near, if not a little above that again for tomorrow. Our temperature change for the last 24 hours, about 3 to 4 degrees, going that bit higher each and every day, and more noticeable each day that it's just a little bit hotter in the afternoon. Futurecast keeping us dry. As you can see, just some partly cloudy skies out there. We're looking this evening and into tonight. Notice how it tries to get a blip or two on there, maybe showing up for a quarter of an hour. That's not going to be something this model does a great job resolving. It's to say, is it impossible to see rain? No. Is it likely? Absolutely not. We're mainly dry, as you can see, into this evening as well. 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning overnight, partly cloudy skies, kind of a little wave of energy moving in, leftover stuff from storms back to the north and west. Note that does kick out a couple of sprinkles out here closer to Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. Our friends up there at Tennessee Valley Weather possibly seeing maybe a sprinkle or two related to that, but for most of us, that is not the case. We're 67 for that low in Grenada, 68 in Greenwood, as well as Cleveland, coming to about 66 in Tunica, 63 in Red Bay, and 63 degrees in Hamilton, Alabama. So the school day forecast, drop-off temperature coming in at around 65. We're 84 by lunchtime and then 93 for tomorrow afternoon. That is, again, back up above our normal. So the kids, it's certainly going to be hot enough in the afternoon that they're going to want to probably have the short sleeves and shorts going on. I mean, even at 65 in the morning, not a terribly long period of time, not as cool as we have been. And again, appreciate the good folks at IMPC for sponsoring our school day forecast for you. Futurecast keeping us dry. As we'll note here, again, not a lot of activity out there to speak of around the region, though 1 or 2 little sprinkles trying to be depicted here on Futurecast. Any kind of meaningful moisture would be closer to a front to the north. Where's that at? Let's look at that here for a moment. You got to go up here for locations back out all the way into northern Illinois and northern Missouri. There's another little wave out here into Arkansas that has just a couple little sprinkles associated with that. Notice they stay primarily back to the west and northwest as we stay dry, 1:30, 2 o'clock. But if we kind of engage the heating of the day, not impossible to get a little pop-up closer to Pine Bluff. We've had some projections that have tried to pick a couple into our area, including right there, as you notice, by around 5 to 6 o'clock. I think this is a very aggressive way in which our projection here in Futurecast is showing it. This is something Gabe will be watching very closely at 10 o'clock. We look for model trends. If it can do it over and over and over again, the confidence increases. Here's hoping we get some moisture. I will say this, I'm going to be up at Northeast Mississippi Community College, their home opener tomorrow, so I'll be live up there from Boonville. So wouldn't it figure that we go live for football and we have rain chances? That tends to happen. We'll see how that ends up playing out for tomorrow. It's going to be hot either way. We're 95 degrees for that high temperature in Bruce and Grenada, 94 Houston and Tupelo, 93 for Amory, and coming to about 96 in Clarksdale as well as Greenwood. Will be 97 for that feels like temperature in Greenwood, 91 Kosciuszko, and 90 in Starkville. So again, lesser amounts of humidity for locations in East Mississippi, and that helps that temperature, that heat index, to be much more manageable. As we check out here through 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. into your Thursday night, mostly dry conditions. That northerly breeze we still kind of have depicted here on our strike model, keeping us dry. But it does have a few sprinkles coming in from the north. And again, I'm going to widen this back out because the reason for that, it's all about our proximity to this front up here, up to the north. So where that's in place, it's possible that we could have a couple of sprinkles. I say the front to the north. You can see you got to go way to the north because we've even wiped it off the map there on the latest data. That shows you how unimpressive it is, right? 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. on your Friday morning, showing a couple little sprinkles out there on this northerly flow. If I popped Gabe's mic up right now, he would tell you this is not a high confidence situation here at all, but not impossible to get a couple of sprinkles going here. We will see if models continue to show this. I'll tell you this, looking at this last night for Thursday, it had some sprinkles like this. You noticed on Futurecast a minute ago, it didn't have very many. So thinking is not impossible to get a couple showers, but you can see even into the evening, those chances become more limited. So we're hoping that means we're dry and we're clear as far as your Friday night football games are likely concerned for the most part. High temperatures on your Friday, we're going to be in the neighborhood of, again, the 90-degree point. Once again, mid-90s out there, 97 for Greenwood, 96 Grenada, very similar temperatures to what we have for tomorrow. I think the main big warming trend, that is probably next week, that really fully keeps in the heat index. Again, very manageable for a hot forecast for this time of the year. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast. Again, beginning tomorrow with 65 in the morning. We're 88 by noontime on your Thursday. 94 for the high, still 91 at 5 p.m. So running a little hotter than we were for today, and mid-70s into the late evening time period. Dry for the Friday. You see, we leave off that percentage. We only put that on when our confidence is great enough for it to be 20%. That is something that Gabe and I will be looking at over the next 24 hours, whether or not we can add one of those on for Friday. Again, 20% coverage of rain means 80% missing out. And we're dry, as you'll note, into Saturday and Sunday, with temperatures heading into the mid-90s as we head toward Monday and Tuesday of next week. Some projections running even a little bit warmer than that. With that in mind, I am going to bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor. Walk over there to the Weather Center for a second. I want your opinion. I want to talk about this for just a second before we kind of go beyond this. So as Gabe kind of walks over there here for a moment. Okay, so let's talk temperatures and the extended forecast for a second here. When I was looking at GFS, and again, you can say what you want to say about GFS, it was a little hotter than that yesterday. Talk me through where you're landing on this with the next week.
Well, I think it's just going to be something that we have to monitor over that extended time frame, because sometimes in North Mississippi, if the winds are oriented just right, you get some of that moisture surging back into the forecast. And with some of that moisture, it limits how high our temperatures can get. I mentioned at 5 that you need a very dry air mass in order to get triple digits here in North Mississippi, or at least typically you do. Well, whenever you have moisture in there, temperatures can still be hot, but then the oppressive part about the forecast comes with the humidity. And so if temperatures trend more 90 to 95, well, then we're talking about those feels like values being anywhere from 105 to maybe even 110, depending on how much moisture is in that forecast. But here we're talking about a dry heat, and that's where triple digits are a realistic possibility, but models at least ranging around that mid 95, 96, and I even bumped it up to 97, because typically whenever you have that sunshine in the forecast, warming up that atmosphere could bump it up a few degrees. And so I might have gone a little bit conservative on some of those high temperatures, but definitely could see that being bumped up to 98, 99, and leaving some room heading into the next 5 days for GFS to do what GFS does, to potentially either bump that up or down. So yes, triple digits are a possibility, but so are 95s, 96s if some of that moisture comes back.
Okay, so I'm pulled up dew points again, GFS. Yeah, it does not go very high on the dew point scale there for the first part of next week. I mean, mid to lower 60s, that's about as manageable as we ever get this time of year.
For sure.
So, it's possible. See, then this is where I'm asking. When I look at Wednesday and it shows a dew point in the maybe 50s, is that a little aggressive on how dry the air is? What are you thinking?
Well, there's not exactly anything that's cooling us off, drying us up. Especially like a drop from the low 60s down to the low 50s, like you were talking about. And so there's not really anything changing in the air mass that's going to allow that to happen. And that's one of the things we'll talk about here coming up later in 6 is some of those long range projections. And I had a few folks ask me over the weekend, hey, when is the next front coming on through? I didn't have the next front until the start of fall, talking about the 22nd or 23rd of September. And that is way off into the extended forecast, as right now we're talking about September 10th, so about 2 weeks away. So the fact that you're getting some of those drops means that something is changing in the atmosphere that is not showing up, at least on the projections that I'm seeing. So I think that is a little bit ambitious. It's not, again, it's not impossible, but that's what you get with 7-day forecasting, is that we're still 7 days out, and a lot of that can and will change. So I'm hopeful that it will change, because we do need some rainfall, and hopefully that would be a front swinging on through, drying us up on the back end, but at least giving us some pop-up showers, but not overly high on that. And that's the unfortunate part about the extended forecast.
Man, the last few falls, this is 4 in a row where we've been one of these droughts, and it's one of those things that, we can to a certain extent correlate this back to climate change. Just, you're more likely to get stuck in these patterns. And unfortunately, this would naturally be our dry season, and it just is enhanced somewhat by that as well. Okay, so we're going to have a look at your high school. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wanted to say with, kind of balancing it out, because on this graphic, you might see that the normal high is 88 degrees, and we were well below that last week and the last couple of weeks. And so there almost has to reach this equilibrium point that we're trying to get to in the atmosphere. So with that extreme cool temperature, you also have to have some of that extreme heat come back to kind of round out that yearly average. And so 88 degrees has to get there somewhere, and it likes to get right around there. And how's it going to do that? Well, of course, having extreme heat. So that's why, this isn't seasonable at all for getting 95, 96, 97 this time of year, as we'd expect to be in the upper 80s. But why that's happening is because it was almost too cold. I'm not going to say cold. Cold is a stretch, but too cool.
Exactly. And I don't want to necessarily even say extreme heat, but, below normal by a ways and above normal by a ways.
Yes.
And, in particular, the dry part here is the part where I think we can, make some attribution toward climate change, is that, the combination there is we just, in either case, stuck in drier patterns longer. That's just one of those things that, unfortunately, we get from time to time there. But one thing that we are going to get coming up after break is our Will Kollmeyer. I'll be talking to him about high school football. He's targeting a really interesting game, and of course, looking toward those SEC football forecasts. Well, I guess more projections on what he's thinking as Mississippi Live Weather at 6 continues from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
What would you give for a child you loved? To make their wish come true? To help them fight a critical illness? Just imagine what you'd do. Every single one of us can make the stars align, because when we come together, hope and joy will shine.
Well, our Will Kollmeyer is back talking high school football. And of course, you're in what to a lot of us is probably the epicenter of that in this state, and that's in West Point.
Well, you got it right on the nose on that one, Matt. And yes, great to be with you again here at 6. We kind of teased a little bit about it at 5 o'clock, but you can maybe see over my shoulder, right over there, right underneath the play clock, you will see all the different years that they've won state titles. They've got 13 of them. They're chasing number 14 this year, and they're off to a terrific start. I mean, everywhere you look around here, they're talking state titles. But when you have won more than anybody else, let's see if I could even adjust this shot. You can kind of see, even on the press box, they're talking about all the different state titles, 13 state titles, looking for number 14. Off to a nice start this year. They're 2-0, 2 really good wins. Beat an excellent Louisville team that first game of the year. And then they just absolutely stunned Starkville right here at this stadium last Friday night. A good Starkville team that knocked off a perennial power Oak Grove in the opener, but 48-15 was the final this past Friday night. This week, the Green Wave will not be here, not in the friendly confines of their home stadium. They're going to be heading down Highway 45 to Macon to take on another perennial power, Noxubee County. And Noxubee County, you can see some of their top performers. They are 2-0 as well. They beat a really good Heidelberg team, a team that won a state title in their classification last year. They outscored them 44-32 in the opener, and then they beat Kemper County 36-12, and they got it done offensively and defensively. You see Mosley getting it done offensively, huge numbers at the running back position. And how about that linebacker, Bennett? I mean, I'm telling you what, he put on a show as well. 15 tackles, 3 of those were behind the line, 2 of them were sacks. He even broke up a pass for the Tigers. So we'll look for those or maybe some players to watch this Friday night. And then for West Point, to no surprise, they love to run the football, and this year is no different. Quentin Thompson had a big game. Branham had a nice game as well, scored 3 touchdowns. Those guys did all of that with 13 carries apiece. And so a lot of big weapons this year for Coach Morgan and company. And that's why they've already knocked off a Louisville. They've already knocked off a Starkville. They're going to take on a Noxubee County team on the road this Friday. Next week, they're off, though, Matt. It gives them an off week, and then it's that massive matchup at Tupelo on the 26th. Arguably the top 2 teams in the state. Now, Tupelo takes on a really good Houston High School team out of Memphis Friday night, their home opener. So there's still, maybe there's still a little work to do, little meat left on the bone, if you will. But most likely, if these 2 teams stay undefeated, there won't be enough seats, I think, at that beautiful stadium there at Tupelo High School to hold all the fans that'll be at that matchup on the 26th.
Everybody's already chattering about that around town. It's crazy, but it's one that people are certainly circling, but you got to take care of business in the short term. Speaking of that, of course, SEC football last week, all the regional teams took care of business, some a little earlier in the contest than others. What do you got heading up this weekend?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll actually be in Oxford on Friday at 5 and 6 to join you with that rivalry getting renewed. Oxford and Lafayette. You talk about 2 schools. You talk about a personal rivalry. That's Oxford and Lafayette. The Commodores will be hosting the Chargers this weekend. We'll talk about that one, but I'll actually be on the Ole Miss campus at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium because that will be the site of that Saturday showdown between the Razorbacks and the Rebels. They've had some memorable games in the past. Remember, this was a pretty good rivalry even before Arkansas joined the SEC. They had some terrific tussles through the years, and expecting another nice matchup this weekend as well in Oxford. That'll be a 6 o'clock kick on Saturday night. Then, of course, you got Mississippi State. What a massive upset that was of number 12 Arizona State. I think you saw somebody Friday that predicted that one. I'm not sure. But anyway, yes, I'm hoping to. I think I'll have a little bit easier pick with Mississippi State this weekend against Alcorn State. Obviously, keeping the money in the state, which is great. These are money games. These are big games for the Alcorn States of the world. So they'll get their paycheck. Mississippi State will get the win. And if State can keep focused and take care of Northern Illinois, and if Tennessee can beat Georgia this weekend, you're talking about 2 4-0 teams, Tennessee and Mississippi State squaring off at Davis Wade Stadium on the 27th of September. Talk about a tough ticket. That'll definitely be the case. And then there's Alabama. The Crimson Tide will start the day hosting my hometown Badgers from Wisconsin. It's going to be a long day for my hometowners. No problem for Alabama. It won't be as ridiculous as last weekend. And Matt, speaking of predictions right on, you said that they would score at least 60, and they certainly did. They ended up with 73 against ULM. It might be, at least I hope from the Badger standpoint, it's a little bit more competitive this week. But that'll be the matchup this weekend.
Well, a big thank you to Will once again for Cole Myers Corner, and we are so excited here in the Room to Room Weather Center here for Mississippi Live Weather for those games this weekend. Remember, our Carl Hogan SEC football forecast showcasing great conditions for this weekend. 89 degrees first play, 81 by halftime, and 77 there towards the final snap. Kickoff around 6 p.m. against Arkansas. So as Will was mentioning, this should be a great matchup between two SEC teams and hopefully get that SEC record looking even better for the Ole Miss Rebels. Alcorn State taking on Mississippi State. Kickoff at 5 p.m. So since it's earlier on in the afternoon, while some of those temperatures are a little bit warmer, 91 degrees first play, 82 by halftime, and 78 by the final snap. Dry throughout the entirety of the time, so it should be good for any of those post-game celebrations that you guys have, because hopefully Mississippi State takes care of business. It would be our luck to upset the number 12 team and then, bad things happen. But we're hopeful. Wisconsin at Alabama. This should be a good matchup as well. Probably not scoring 70 points for the Crimson Tide, but should be a good back and forth battle. 11 a.m. there Saturday, 88 by the first play, 94 by halftime. And since this is earlier on in the day, temperatures actually warming up instead of decreasing like what we're seeing here in North Mississippi. So final snap, 96 degrees. It's going to be a hot one for sure over there in Bryant-Denny. Let's hope it's a hot one on the field as well as those several touchdowns get thrown. I'm ready for a good game on that one. And our Casey Lott High School Game of the Week forecast has 88 degrees by pregame, 81 halftime, and 76 by the final snap. So with those games being in the evening, honestly, that's the best case scenario because it's after all that heat has passed. And we'll be enjoying much more comfortable, much drier conditions, and no severe weather is expected. But let's go ahead and jump out to the tropics and look at the long-range forecast, because we are tracking a new development and invest over there in the Atlantic that has a 20% chance of developing over the next 7 days. Not really expecting any development over the next 48 hours. And as we track this out on some of our long-range models, not reaching anywhere close to the United States and not really getting anywhere near impressive. So we're hopeful that that continues to be the case and don't get any major impacts from this storm, but we're keeping eyes on the tropics, of course, like we usually do. But let's go ahead and look at precipitation outlooks and temperature outlooks, because this is the story here in North Mississippi over that expanded time frame. Not anything in the tropics, but right here, what you're seeing before you. September 16th through September 20th. You notice that we are on the drier side of things, so that drier forecast doesn't end over the next 7. It continues beyond that point as we head into that fall season. And speaking of that fall season, I told you that there was a frontal boundary trying to push through. Still hopeful that that's going to happen, but that's going to be moving through the Midwest there through September 23rd and 24th before reaching more into our area later on. So it's going to be post-fall where we get our most significant rainfall, more than likely, but long-range models can and will change, and we're hopeful that they can and do change because we need it to here in North Mississippi to at least get some of that moisture. And there's a look over the next 30 days that there is some hope at more of a wetter forecast, so at least getting some rainfall in as we wrap up the month of September. But the fact that we're talking about it in that light of nature, we're not really hopeful that those rain chances are going to be anything too impactful, and that's unfortunate for our drought monitor, as we showed you at the top of the broadcast, currently encompassing a large part of North Mississippi, and we expect that to get even worse for our latest drought monitor coming out tomorrow morning. Precipitation outlook over the next 3 months, you might notice that we are pretty much average for this time of year. And average this time of year is a very dry pattern as we just watch fronts basically cycle on through and cool us off, get more of that fall weather in place. And so we're hopeful that a few of those fronts will bring us back to average, at least on the drought monitor, and make things look a little bit better. But that's over the next 3 months, and our expectations here over the next 1 month is not very high. But temperature outlooks, this is just something to take in. I mean, my goodness, is it hot enough for you? September 16th through September 20th. You look at this scale right here. We're talking about 3 ticks away from being on the highest end of that legend. And so when we say hot, we mean hot, and we mean summer forecast taking full effect. That summer surge, we had a little bit of a break from it, but it is trying to make its presence felt once again and say, hey, did you forget about me? Because I'm still right here. And September 18th through September 24th sees some of those warmer temperatures continue in the forecast, albeit it's not the highest end of the spectrum, but still on the warmer side, and we will continue to enjoy those hot conditions here in North Mississippi. Now let's go over the next 30 days, and you might notice that there will be some areas talking about average temperatures, and average temperatures here in the next 30, we're talking about the low to mid 80s. So seeing some of those temperatures fall off just a bit as we head into that fall season, but warmer temperatures expected along and south of Highway 82. So that is going to be areas that we watch for those above average conditions. And over the next 3 months, this isn't exactly shaping up for a white Christmas, but hey, the atmosphere changes each and every day. As we noticed, it was cool beforehand and then it got hot this week, but that's just how the next 3 months are going to go. Very flip-floppy on that forecast, enjoying some cool days, enjoying some warm days. That'll balance out to an above average forecast temperature-wise. But for tonight, dry conditions continue to be the story, perfect for those church plans if you've not head out the door just yet. 7 p.m., 85 degrees, 74 by 10, and 70 there by 1. Clear conditions all night long, so it'll be a perfect forecast up in the sky. Beautiful night sky expected with plenty of stars up there. And temperature-wise, at least cooler than where we're at this afternoon. And we'll take any victory that we can whenever it comes to those temperatures. So looking at some of the comments right here. Will K's a sports guy. No one does it better. We couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Robert. That is exactly right. And so we are grateful to have him a part of the Mississippi Live Weather team. And I love listening to his takes. And so far, we need to do a Will Kohlmeyer record and see what he finishes at the end of the year with some of those projections. But so far, he's been on the money with those projections for SEC football forecasts. So that might be something we get in the works here behind the scenes because I'm curious about it. And so far, he's not been too wrong just yet. But yeah, so that is basically all we have for Mississippi Live Weather at 6. A very hot forecast, a very dry forecast. But fortunately, that is good for getting stuff done outside as long as you stay hydrated in the process. You can track that forecast anytime using the Mississippi Live Weather app. You see iOS and Android right here to my bottom left and right. Go ahead and download those apps today on the App Store, and it is available on Roku. Search Mississippi Live, and Apple TV. Recent edition. Search Mississippi Live Weather and you can download that today. Still working on Fire Stick, but we are hopeful that we can get that handled here shortly. Yeah, we are optimistic to say the least. So that pretty much sums it up here for Mississippi Live Weather at 6. Next broadcast coming up tonight at 10, where, as Matt mentioned, a key part of that forecast is that limited moisture moving into your Thursday evening. How will models project that moving into that next model run? We'll have the latest details for you on what we hope will be a somewhat rainy hour or 2 hours for your Thursday evening. Again, walking through that latest forecast, timing, and positioning here coming up on Mississippi Live Weather at 10. Until then, have a great evening and try and stay cool.
Community is the way we find our strength and share our hope. It's the way dinner on the table brings a family closer together. It's the way we make sure his first chapter book is the first step on his path to greatness. It's the way we rally in hard times and rise back up stronger than ever. United is the way we come together so everyone can thrive. Join us at unitedway.org.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. You know, we knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt Laupon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt Laupon has proven himself trustworthy